The afternoon sun was bright over Monroe Park, casting sharp shadows across the playground where children laughed and ran. Tasha Williams wiped down her food cart's counter, the smell of grilled sausages and peppers mixing with the spring air. Her red apron was stained from the lunch rush, and her feet ached in her worn sneakers. She'd made maybe $60 today. Rent was due in 5 days and she was $200 short. A little girl in a yellow sundress caught her attention. She was maybe 5 years old, with dark curls bouncing as she chased a butterfly near the fountain. Her laughter carried across the grass, pure and bright. A tall man in an expensive gray suit sat on a nearby bench, watching her with tired eyes, his phone pressed to his ear. 2 other men in dark suits stood at a distance, clearly security. Tasha turned back to her cart, squeezing mustard bottles to check how much was left. She'd need to restock tomorrow, which meant another $40 she didn't have. The thought made her stomach tight. Then the little girl screamed. Tasha's head snapped up. A man in a black jacket had grabbed the child, yanking her away from the fountain. The girl's yellow dress twisted as she struggled. The man in the suit dropped his phone and started running, but he was too far away. The security guards were caught off guard, sprinting from the wrong angle. The man in the black jacket pulled something from his pocket. Metal flashed in the sunlight. A knife. Tasha didn't think. Her body moved before her brain caught up. She vaulted over her cart's counter, her hips slamming against the metal edge, pain shooting through her side. Her feet hit the grass running. The world narrowed to that blade, that small hand reaching out, those wide terrified eyes. The man raised the knife. The little girl's mouth opened in another scream that Tasha felt in her bones. The blade started its downward arc. Tasha's hand shot out and closed around the blade. The metal bit into her palm, sharp and cold and burning all at once. Blood welled up immediately, hot and slick, running down her wrist and dripping onto the grass. The man's eyes went wide with shock behind his sunglasses. He tried to pull the knife back, and the blade cut deeper into Tasha's hand. She gritted her teeth against the pain that screamed up her arm and held on tighter. "Run," Tasha gasped at the little girl. Her voice came out strangled, but the child understood. She stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet in her hurry to get away. The man yanked harder on the knife. Tasha's hand felt like it was splitting open, her blood making everything slippery. She could feel the blade grating against something inside her palm, maybe bone. Black spots danced at the edges of her vision, but she didn't let go. "Let go," the man snarled, his face twisting with rage. He raised his other hand to strike her. Then the man in the gray suit slammed into the attacker like a freight train. They both went down in a tangle of limbs. The knife jerked out of Tasha's hand as they fell, and she stumbled backward, cradling her injured hand against her chest. Blood soaked through her red apron, dripping onto her jeans. The security guards reached them seconds later, pulling the attacker away from the suited man and pinning him face down on the grass. People were screaming now. Someone was calling 911. A woman was crying. Tasha's legs gave out and she sat down hard on the grass. Her hand was throbbing, each pulse of her heartbeat sending fresh waves of pain through her arm. She looked down at the cut and immediately wished she hadn't. The gash ran across her entire palm, deep and ugly, blood still flowing freely. "Ma'am? Ma'am, stay with me." The man in the gray suit was kneeling beside her. Up close, she could see he was maybe in his mid-30s, with light brown hair and worried green eyes. His expensive suit had grass stains on the knees now. "Your hand?" he said, his voice tight. He pulled off his suit jacket and wrapped it around her hand, pressing down to stop the bleeding. The pressure made her gasp. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "The girl," Tasha managed. Her tongue felt thick. "Is she okay?" "She's fine. She's safe. Because of you." His hands were shaking as he held the jacket against her wound. "The ambulance is coming. Just hold on." The little girl appeared at his shoulder, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, is the lady going to be okay?" "Yes, baby. She's going to be fine." He pulled the child close with one arm, still keeping pressure on Tasha's hand with the other. "She's very brave." Tasha wanted to say something, but her mouth wouldn't work right. The park was tilting sideways. She heard sirens in the distance getting closer. The man was talking to her, his voice urgent, but the words were getting fuzzy. The last thing she saw before everything went dark was the little girl's face, tear-stained and terrified, and those wide brown eyes that reminded Tasha of every reason she'd ever had to believe people were worth saving. When she thought about it later, in the quiet moments before sleep, Tasha would wonder what made her run toward danger instead of away from it. She'd never been brave. She'd spent most of her 24 years just trying to survive, working 3 jobs to pay for community college before she had to drop out, sleeping on friends' couches when rent got too high, pretending she wasn't hungry when the money ran out before the month did. But something about that little girl's scream had reached inside her chest and pulled. Maybe it was because Tasha remembered being small and scared once, when her own mother had died and left her alone in the world. Maybe it was because she'd spent so long feeling helpless that when she finally had a chance to help someone else, she couldn't not take it. Or maybe she was just tired of being the person things happened to. Maybe, just for once, she wanted to be the person who made things happen. Whatever the reason, that moment in the park changed everything. The knife that cut her hand also cut through the invisible wall that had separated her old life from something new, something she'd never imagined possible. But lying there on the grass, blood soaking through an expensive suit jacket, Tasha didn't know any of that yet. She just knew that a child was safe and that somehow, despite everything, that was enough. Have you ever witnessed a moment that made you question what you would do in a life-or-death situation? When seconds matter and there's no time to think, would you run toward danger or away from it? Drop a comment below with your honest answer, and don't forget to subscribe to see how Tasha's split-second decision changes her entire life. Would you have done what she did? Tasha woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the sound of machines beeping softly. Her mouth tasted like cotton, and her head felt stuffed with wool. For a few confused seconds she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was white and smooth, with recessed lighting that was turned down low. Definitely not her apartment, where water stains marked the ceiling in brown constellations. Her right hand felt heavy and distant, like it belonged to someone else. She turned her head, moving slowly because everything felt fragile, and looked down. Her hand was wrapped in thick white bandages from fingertips to wrist. And 4 lines ran into her left arm, connected to a bag of clear fluid hanging from a metal stand. "You're awake." The voice made her jump, then wince as pain flared in her hand. The man from the park sat in a chair beside her bed. He'd changed out of his grass-stained suit and now wore dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble shadowing his jaw. "Where am I?" Tasha's voice came out rough and scratchy. "St. Catherine's Hospital. Private wing." He leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees. "You've been out for about 6 hours. The surgery went well." "Surgery?" Tasha tried to sit up, but her body protested. "I can't afford surgery. I don't have insurance. I'm covering it." He said it simply, like it was obvious. "All of it? The surgery, the hospital stay, medications, physical therapy, everything?" "No." The word came out automatically. Tasha had learned early that accepting help from rich people always came with strings. "I can't let you do that. You saved my daughter's life." His voice was quiet but firm. "You could have walked away. You could have called for help and stayed safe. Instead, you caught a knife with your bare hand." He ran a hand through his hair, and she noticed his hand was shaking slightly. "Do you understand what that means? You didn't hesitate. You didn't think about yourself. You just acted." Tasha looked away from him, focusing on the window. Outside the sky was dark. Evening then. She'd lost most of a day. Anyone would have done the same thing. "No." His voice was sharp now. "No, they wouldn't have. I've spent the last 6 hours replaying that moment in my head. Dozens of people were in that park. Only you moved." He stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. "The doctor said the knife cut through your palm muscle. Millimeters from a tendon. If it had hit that tendon, you might never have regained full use of your hand." The words hung in the air between them. Tasha looked down at her bandaged hand again, really seeing it this time. Her hand. The hand she needed to work, to feed herself, to survive. And she'd risked it for a stranger's child without a second thought. "What's your name?" the man asked, turning back to face her. "Tasha." "Tasha Williams." "Jonathan Reynolds." He moved back to the chair and sat down, meeting her eyes. "And before you ask, yes, I'm that Jonathan Reynolds. Reynolds Technology. I design software for medical devices." Tasha had heard the name before. Everyone had. Reynolds Technology was one of the biggest employers in the city, and Jonathan Reynolds was known for being a genius who'd built his company from nothing by the time he was 25. He was also known for being intensely private after his wife's death 3 years ago. "Your daughter?" Tasha said. "Is she really okay?" Jonathan's expression softened. "She's perfect. Not a scratch on her. She's with my sister right now, but she's been asking about you constantly. She wants to meet you when you're feeling better. If that's okay." "Yeah. Yes, of course." "Tasha." Jonathan leaned forward again. "Let me help you. Please. You're going to be in pain for weeks. You'll need time to heal, physical therapy to regain strength in your hand. You can't work your food cart like this. The reality of her situation hit Tasha like cold water. Her cart. Her only source of income. Her rent that was due in 5 days. The groceries she couldn't afford. The bills stacking up. She'd been living on the edge for so long that one push would send her over, and this was more than a push. This was a cliff. I don't have anyone to cover my cart, she said quietly. I'll lose my spot. I'll lose my permit fees. I'll lose everything. Then let me help you, Jonathan repeated. I'm not trying to buy your gratitude or make you feel obligated. I'm trying to do what's right. You saved my daughter. You saved the only family I have left in this world. Please let me make sure you don't suffer for doing something heroic. Tasha wanted to refuse. Every instinct she'd developed over years of scraping by told her not to trust this. But she looked at her bandaged hand again and thought about her empty refrigerator and her overdue rent notice and the fact that pride wouldn't keep a roof over her head. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Relief washed over Jonathan's face. Thank you for letting me help. I've already spoken to your landlord and paid your rent for the next 3 months. I hope that's okay. I found the information in your wallet, which the paramedics gave me. I'll give it back, of course. 3 months. Tasha stared at him. I figured that would give you time to heal and figure out your next steps. Also, I'd like to offer you a job. After you've recovered. A job? Doing what? I didn't even finish college. I need someone I can trust around my daughter. Jonathan's voice was steady. Someone who's proven they'll protect her without hesitation. I'm thinking a personal assistant position. You'd help coordinate my schedule, handle some logistics, and yes, sometimes that would include being around Bethany. My current assistant is retiring next month anyway, and she's agreed to train you. I don't have any experience, Tasha protested. I wouldn't know what to do. You'd learn. Jessica, my current assistant, is excellent. She'll teach you everything you need to know. The salary is $70,000 a year, plus health insurance and education benefits if you want to finish your degree. $70,000. Tasha had made maybe $22,000 last year, working herself to exhaustion. With that kind of money, she could live in a real apartment. She could eat regular meals. She could afford a winter coat that wasn't from a thrift store. I don't understand why you're doing all this, she said. It's too much. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. 3 years ago, my wife died in a car accident. Bethany was only 2. Since then, she's been my whole world. The thought of losing her too. He stopped, swallowing hard. That man had a knife to my daughter. If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't acted, I would have watched her die. There's no amount of money or help that equals what you did. So please let me try. Tasha felt tears burning in her eyes. She thought about her mother, dead from an illness they couldn't afford to treat. She thought about all the times she'd needed help and gotten turned away. She thought about the little girl in the yellow dress and how small and scared she'd looked. Okay, she said again. Yes, I'll take the job. Thank you so much. Jonathan smiled, and the relief in his expression was so genuine that some of Tasha's doubt faded. Thank you. Now you should rest. The nurse said you can probably go home tomorrow if the pain is manageable. I've arranged for a car to take you home and for a nurse to check on you daily for the first week. You really don't have to do all that. I know I don't have to. I want to. He stood up and moved toward the door, then paused. Tasha? What you did today was extraordinary. I hope you know that. After he left, Tasha lay in the dark hospital room and looked at her bandaged hand. Pain throbbed through it in steady waves, but underneath the pain was something else. Something that felt almost like hope. She'd spent so long just surviving, accepting that her life would always be hard, that good things happened to other people. But maybe, just maybe, that was about to change. A nurse came in to check her vitals and adjust her medication. You're pretty famous, you know, the nurse said with a kind smile. She was an older woman with gray streaks in her dark hair. Someone caught the whole thing on their phone. You're all over the news. They're calling you the hero of Monroe Park. I'm not a hero, Tasha said automatically. Tell that to that little girl. The nurse patted her shoulder gently. Try to sleep. Your body needs rest to heal. After the nurse left, Tasha closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come easily. Her mind kept replaying the moment she'd caught the knife, the feel of the blade cutting into her palm, the little girl's terrified scream. She'd been so scared in that moment, her heart hammering so hard she thought it would burst. But she'd done it anyway. And somehow, that scared girl with the food cart and the overdue rent had become someone else. Someone who ran toward danger instead of away from it. Someone who mattered. She thought about Jonathan's offer. A real job. Health insurance. A chance to go back to school. It felt too good to be true, like a dream she'd wake up from to find herself back in her cramped studio, counting quarters for the laundromat. But the pain in her hand was real. The soft sheets and quiet room were real. And maybe, just maybe, this second chance was real too. Tasha let herself imagine it. Waking up in an apartment with heat that actually worked, eating breakfast without checking her bank account first, walking into an office where people knew her name. Having a job that mattered, protecting a little girl who needed her. Being someone's hero. The medication was making her drowsy now, pulling her down into sleep. Her last thought before darkness took her was of the little girl's face and the pure relief in her father's eyes. She'd caught a knife today. Maybe she'd caught something else too. Something like a future. The next morning, Tasha was discharged with a prescription for pain medication, instructions for hand care, and an appointment with a hand specialist for the following week. Jonathan had sent a car as promised, a sleek black sedan with a quiet driver who helped her into the back seat and made sure she was comfortable before pulling away from the hospital. Tasha watched the city roll past her window. Usually she'd take the bus, standing in the aisle when it got crowded, watching wealthy people in their nice cars zip past. Now she was one of those people in a nice car and it felt surreal. When the car pulled up to her apartment building, Tasha's stomach sank. The building looked even more run down than usual. Peeling paint, a broken window on the second floor covered with cardboard, trash scattered near the dumpster. The driver didn't comment, just helped her out and offered to walk her up. "I'm okay," Tasha said. "Thank you." Her apartment was on the third floor, and by the time she climbed the stairs, her hand was throbbing and sweat had broken out on her forehead. She fumbled with her keys using her left hand, finally getting the door open. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it. One room with a kitchenette on one wall, a bathroom barely big enough to turn around in, a mattress on the floor, and a small table with two mismatched chairs. Her clothes hung from a tension rod in the corner. The whole space was maybe 300 square feet. Tasha sat down on her mattress and looked around. This had been home for 8 months, the longest she'd stayed anywhere since her mother died. She'd been almost proud of it, this proof that she could take care of herself. Now it just looked sad. A knock on the door made her jump. When she opened it, she found Jonathan standing in the hallway with the little girl from the park holding his hand. "I hope you don't mind," Jonathan said. "Bethany insisted on coming. We brought lunch." He held up a bag from an expensive bistro downtown. "The brave lady." Bethany let go of her father's hand and looked up at Tasha with wide eyes. "Daddy said you got hurt saving me. Can I see?" "Bethany, remember what we talked about?" Jonathan said gently. "Oh yeah. Thank you for saving me. Are you okay? Does it hurt a lot?" The words tumbled out in a rush. Tasha felt her throat get tight. She knelt down carefully to be at eye level with the child. "It hurts some, but I'm okay. And you're welcome. I'm really glad you're safe." Bethany threw her arms around Tasha's neck, hugging her tight. "You're my hero." Over the child's shoulder, Tasha met Jonathan's eyes. He looked like he might cry. They ate lunch at Tasha's tiny table, Jonathan sitting in one chair and Bethany perched on his lap while Tasha took the other chair. Bethany chattered about everything: her kindergarten class, her best friend Emma, the picture she'd drawn of Tasha catching the knife, which she'd brought to show her. "See? That's you in the red apron. And that's the bad man. And that's the knife. But you stopped it." Bethany pointed at each element of her crayon drawing. "Daddy says you're the bravest person he's ever met." "I don't know about that," Tasha said. "It's true," Jonathan said quietly. "I've known a lot of people in my life, Tasha. Business people, politicians, celebrities. None of them would have done what you did." After they ate, Bethany asked if she could watch cartoons. Jonathan pulled up a show on his phone and handed it to her, then turned to Tasha. "I meant what I said yesterday. About the job. Jessica, my assistant, is expecting you at the office on Monday. If you're feeling up to it, that is." "Monday?" That was only 4 days away. "I don't know if my hand will be healed enough." "You won't be doing any physical labor. Mostly learning the systems, meeting people, understanding how things work. Jessica will handle the actual work while you train." Jonathan paused. "I also wanted to talk to you about your living situation." Tasha felt her face get hot. "I know it's not much, but it's mine. The rent is paid. I'm not criticizing. I grew up in a place not much bigger than this. But I'd like to help you find something better. Safer. Closer to the office so you don't have to commute as far." He held up a hand before she could protest. "Not a penthouse. Just a decent one-bedroom in a building with working heat and a door that locks properly. I noticed yours is broken. Tasha looked at her door. The lock had been busted for 2 months, and the landlord kept promising to fix it but never did. She'd been using the chain lock, but it wasn't exactly secure. Why are you doing all this? She asked. The job, I understand. But everything else, it's too much. Jonathan was quiet for a moment, watching Bethany laugh at something on the phone screen. When my wife died, I was lost. Completely lost. I had a 2-year-old daughter and no idea how to be a single parent. I had all the money in the world, but I couldn't buy my way out of grief or confusion. He turned to look at Tasha. People helped me. My sister moved in for 6 months. My assistant Jessica extended her hours. My neighbors checked in constantly. They didn't have to. They did it because it was right, because I needed help and they could provide it. He gestured around the small apartment. You need help right now. I can provide it. It's that simple. It doesn't feel simple, Tasha admitted. Then think of it this way, you saved my daughter's life. That's a debt I can never fully repay. But I can make sure that being heroic doesn't cost you everything. I can make sure you come out of this better than you went in. Please let me do that. Tasha thought about refusing again. But the truth was she was tired. Tired of struggling, tired of just barely making it, tired of living in a place with a broken lock and heat that barely worked. And more than that, she was scared. Her hand might heal fine or it might not. She might regain full use of it or she might lose grip strength. The doctors had been optimistic but cautious. If she couldn't work her food cart, if she couldn't grip utensils or lift pots, what would she do? Jonathan was offering her a way forward. Maybe the only way forward. Okay, she said. Help me find a better apartment. And I'll start training on Monday. Jonathan smiled. Thank you. I'll have my property manager send you some listings. Nothing too expensive, just safe and comfortable. You can choose whatever you like. Over the next few days, Tasha's life changed faster than she could process. The property manager sent her links to a dozen apartments, all in decent neighborhoods with actual amenities. Tasha chose a one-bedroom in a building 20 minutes from Reynolds Technology. It had a real kitchen, a bathroom with a tub and windows that actually opened. The property manager said she could move in immediately, first and last month's rent already covered. Jonathan sent movers to pack up her old apartment. They arrived on Saturday morning, and Tasha watched in amazement as they carefully wrapped her few belongings, including the old photograph of her mother that she kept by her mattress. Is this going too? One of the movers asked, pointing at the mattress. No, Jonathan said from behind her. Tasha jumped. She hadn't heard him come in. New furniture is being delivered to the new place this afternoon. You bought me furniture? Basic stuff. Bed, couch, table. You'll want to pick out your own decorations and personal items, but I figured you'd need the essentials. He looked almost embarrassed. If you don't like any of it, we can return it. Tasha felt overwhelmed. It was happening too fast, this transformation from struggling food cart vendor to someone with a real apartment and new furniture and a job that paid $70,000. Part of her kept waiting for the catch, for someone to laugh and tell her it was all a mistake. But Jonathan just smiled at her, patient and kind, and Bethany grabbed her good hand and pulled her toward the door, chattering about how Tasha's new apartment was only 15 minutes from their house and maybe Tasha could come over for dinner sometimes. The new apartment was beautiful. Not fancy but clean and bright, with pale walls and hardwood floors. The furniture the movers delivered was simple but good quality. A Real bed with a frame and a headboard, a gray couch, a dining table with 4 chairs. The kitchen had a full-size refrigerator and a stove with all 4 burners working. Tasha stood in the middle of the living room and felt tears start to fall. She'd been holding it together for days, accepting help and saying thank you and trying not to feel like a charity case. But standing in this apartment, with sunlight streaming through clean windows and space to actually move around, something inside her cracked. Hey. Jonathan's voice was gentle. He'd been helping the movers, but he came over now, keeping a respectful distance. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. That's the problem. Tasha wiped at her tears with her good hand. I don't deserve this. Yes, you do. I caught a knife. That's it. I didn't do anything special. You risked your life for a stranger's child. You acted when everyone else froze. You're still in pain from your injury, but you're more worried about whether you deserve help than whether you're going to be okay. Jonathan's voice was firm. Tasha, you deserve every bit of this and more. Please believe that. Bethany appeared in the doorway, carrying the framed photograph of Tasha's mother. Where should I put this? She asked. On the nightstand in the bedroom, Tasha said, her voice thick. Thank you, sweetie. After Bethany skipped off, Jonathan said quietly, "You lost someone too." "My mom. 6 years ago. Cancer." Tasha took a shaky breath. "We couldn't afford treatment." "Well, we could have if we'd had insurance, but we didn't, and by the time we figured out how to apply for assistance, it was too late." "I'm sorry. That's why I did it. Why I ran." Tasha looked at him. "When I saw that man with the knife, all I could think was that someone was about to lose the person they loved most. And I couldn't let that happen if I could stop it." Jonathan's eyes were bright. "Your mother raised an incredible person." They spent the rest of the afternoon organizing Tasha's things. Bethany helped put away dishes in the kitchen, standing on a chair to reach the cabinets. Jonathan assembled a bookshelf Tasha hadn't realized she'd be getting. By evening, the apartment looked like a real home. "Pizza?" Jonathan suggested, pulling out his phone. "I'm ordering. What do you like?" They ate pizza sitting on Tasha's new couch, Bethany between them, tomato sauce on her chin. The little girl was tired from all the excitement and kept yawning, leaning against Tasha's side. "Someone's ready for bed," Jonathan said with a smile. "We should get going." As he gathered their things and helped Bethany into her jacket, he turned to Tasha. "Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Jessica will meet you in the lobby. She's excited to meet you." "I'm nervous," Tasha admitted. "That's normal. But you're going to be great." He paused at the door. "Thank you, Tasha. For everything. For saving Bethany. For letting me help. For giving me a way to feel like I'm doing something good in a world that often feels cruel." After they left, Tasha walked through her apartment, touching the furniture, looking out the windows, opening and closing the cabinets just because she could. She took a long bath in the clean tub, marveling at hot water that actually stayed hot. She made tea in her kitchen, using a mug that wasn't cracked. That night, lying in her new bed with actual sheets and pillows, Tasha stared at the ceiling and tried to process everything. A week ago she'd been a nobody. A girl with a food cart and overdue bills, invisible to most of the world. Now she had an apartment, a job, and something that felt almost like a family. A little girl who hugged her tight and called her brave. A man who looked at her like she mattered. It was terrifying and wonderful and so much more than she'd ever let herself hope for. Her hand throbbed under the bandages, a reminder of how she'd gotten here. Tomorrow she'd worry about whether she deserved it. Tonight she'd just be grateful. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Tasha stood in front of her new closet, staring at her limited wardrobe with growing panic. She had jeans, t-shirts, her red apron from the food cart, and one dress she'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago for a friend's wedding. Nothing appropriate for working at a technology company. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. "Jessica will meet you at 9. Don't worry about clothes. Casual is fine. You've got this." Tasha texted back a thank you, then chose her newest jeans and a green sweater that didn't have any holes. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Her hair needed to be done, her sneakers were old, and she still looked like someone who'd spent the last year selling sausages from a cart. But her eyes were bright with something she barely recognized. Excitement, maybe. Or hope. The Reynolds Technology Building was downtown, a sleek glass structure that reflected the morning sky. Tasha had passed it on the bus dozens of times, never imagining she'd walk through its doors. The lobby was all marble and chrome with a security desk and turnstiles. A woman was waiting near the entrance. She was in her early 60s, with silver hair cut in a neat bob and kind eyes behind stylish glasses. She wore a blue cardigan over a white blouse and her smile was warm. "You must be Tasha. I'm Jessica Torres." She extended her hand, then noticed Tasha's bandaged right hand. "Oh, of course. How is it healing?" "Better, I think. Still hurts." "I bet. Come on, let me show you around." Jessica led her through the turnstiles, using a badge to get them through. "Don't be nervous. Everyone here is friendly and Jonathan's told them all about you. You're something of a celebrity." The office was open and bright, with floor-to-ceiling windows and plants everywhere. People worked at standing desks in conference rooms, on couches and casual seating areas. It didn't look like any office Tasha had imagined. Reynolds Technology designs software for medical devices, Jessica explained as they walked. Everything from hospital equipment monitors to home health systems. The work we do here literally saves lives, which is why Jonathan is so passionate about it. He lost his wife to a medical issue that might have been caught earlier with better monitoring equipment. "I didn't know that," Tasha said quietly. "He doesn't talk about it much. But it drives him. Everything he does is about making sure other families don't lose what he lost." Jessica guided her into an elevator. "We're on the 23rd floor. That's where Jonathan's office is and where you'll be working. The 23rd floor was quieter, with thick carpet and actual walls instead of the open layout downstairs. Jessica's desk sat outside a large corner office with frosted glass walls. A second desk, currently empty, sat next to it. "That's yours?" Jessica said. "Computer should be all set up. Login information is in this packet." She handed Tasha a folder. "We'll spend today going over the basics. Calendar management, email protocols, meeting scheduling. It sounds boring, but it's the foundation of everything." They'd barely sat down when Jonathan's office door opened. He looked professional in dark slacks and a white dress shirt, though his tie was slightly crooked. "Tasha. Good morning. How's the hand?" "Better, thank you." "Good. I'll let Jessica get you oriented. I've got a conference call in 10 minutes, but I'll check in later." He smiled at her, and Tasha felt some of her nervousness fade. The morning flew by. Jessica was an excellent teacher, patient and thorough. She showed Tasha how to access Jonathan's calendar, how to prioritize meeting requests, how to filter his emails so he only saw the most important ones. It was overwhelming but also fascinating, seeing how one person could manage so many responsibilities. "The key is organization," Jessica explained. "Jonathan's brilliant, but he'd forget to eat lunch if someone didn't remind him. That's where we come in. We keep his life running smoothly so he can focus on the big picture." At noon, Jonathan emerged from his office. "Lunchtime. There's a cafeteria on the 10th floor, or we can order in." "What sounds good, Tasha?" "The cafeteria is fine," Tasha said, though the thought of eating in a room full of people who all seemed to know what they were doing made her anxious. The cafeteria was bright and modern, with different food stations and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Jessica got soup and a salad, Jonathan grabbed a sandwich, and Tasha chose pasta, acutely aware of how expensive everything looked. "It's all free for employees," Jessica said, noticing Tasha's hesitation. "One of the company perks." They found a table by the windows. Jonathan was immediately recognized, with people stopping by to say hello or ask quick questions. He introduced Tasha each time, and the reactions were similar: surprise, curiosity, and then understanding as they made the connection to the news story. "You're the woman who caught the knife," a young programmer said, his eyes wide. "That video was incredible. My girlfriend watched it like 10 times. After he left, Tasha whispered to Jessica, "There's a video?" "Oh honey, yes. Someone recorded the whole thing on their phone. It went viral." "You haven't seen it?" Tasha shook her head. She'd been too busy moving and recovering to check social media. Jessica pulled out her phone and found the video within seconds. She turned it so Tasha could see the screen. The video started with the camera focused on someone's dog, but then you could hear a child screaming. The camera swung around, shaky and unfocused, but it caught everything. Tasha vaulting over her food cart. Sprinting across the grass. The knife coming down. Her hand shooting out and closing around the blade. The angle was from a distance, but you could see the blood. You could see Tasha's face, twisted with pain but determined. You could see her grip tighten even as the attacker tried to pull away. And you could see the little girl stumbling backwards safe. The video ended with Jonathan tackling the attacker. The view count at the bottom was over 2 million. "I look terrified," Tasha whispered. "You look brave," Jonathan corrected. "There's a difference." That afternoon, Jessica continued Tasha's training. They went over filing systems, vendor contacts, and the various departments within the company. Tasha tried to absorb it all, taking notes with her left hand since her right was still too sore. Around 3, Bethany appeared with Jonathan's sister, a woman in her 40s with the same green eyes as Jonathan. "Uncle Jonathan said I could visit," Bethany announced. "This is Aunt Claire." "The famous Tasha," Claire said, shaking Tasha's left hand. "I've heard so much about you. Bethany talks about you constantly. Look, I brought you something." Bethany held up another drawing, this one of Tasha sitting at a desk. "That's you in your new job. You look happy." "I am happy," Tasha said, and realized it was true. They stayed for half an hour, Bethany sitting at Tasha's desk and pretending to type on the computer while Claire and Jonathan talked in his office. When they left, Bethany hugged Tasha tight around the waist. "I'm glad you work here now. We can see you all the time." The rest of the week followed a similar pattern. Tasha arrived at 9, spent the day learning from Jessica, and went home to her apartment at 5. She was exhausted every night, her brain full of new information, but it was a good exhaustion. She was learning. She was useful. Jessica was patient with her mistakes, of which there were many. Tasha accidentally deleted an important email, double-booked Jonathan for a meeting, and somehow managed to order 50 pizzas instead of 5 for a company lunch. But Jessica just laughed, fixed the problems, and showed her how to avoid them next time. Everyone makes mistakes, she said. The important thing is learning from them. Jonathan was kind but professional. He checked in daily, asking how she was settling in and if she needed anything, but he didn't hover. Tasha appreciated that. She didn't want to be treated like a charity case, and he seemed to understand that instinctively. By Friday, Tasha felt almost comfortable. She'd learned the basics of the calendar system, could navigate the email filters without panicking, and had memorized the names of the key department heads. Her hands still hurt, but the pain was manageable with over-the-counter medication. At 5 o'clock, Jessica started packing up her things. You survived your first week. How do you feel? Overwhelmed. But in a good way. That's normal. You're doing great, Tasha. Much better than I did my first week, and I'd been an assistant for 10 years before coming here. Jessica pulled on her coat. Jonathan wants to talk to you before you leave, by the way. Don't worry, you're not in trouble. After Jessica left, Tasha knocked on Jonathan's door. He was standing by the window looking out at the city. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the office. How was your first week? He asked without turning around. Good. Hard but good. Jessica's an excellent teacher. She is. And she tells me you're a quick learner. He turned to face her. I wanted to check how you're really doing. Not just with the job, but with everything. It's been a lot of change very quickly. Tasha thought about lying, about saying everything was perfect. But something about Jonathan's direct gaze made her want to be honest. It's strange. A week ago, I was living in a tiny apartment with a broken lock, barely making rent. Now I have a real place, a real job, and people who seem to genuinely care if I'm okay. It doesn't feel real sometimes. I understand that feeling. After Lily died, people kept telling me how lucky I was. Lucky to have money, lucky to have a daughter, lucky to have a successful company. And I was lucky. But it didn't feel lucky. It felt like I was wearing someone else's life. He moved away from the window and sat on the edge of his desk. Eventually, I stopped waiting for it to feel normal and just let it be my new reality. That's my advice to you. This is your life now. You earned it by being extraordinary when it mattered. Let yourself have it. I'll try, Tasha said. Good. Now I have a question. Bethany's birthday is next Saturday. She's turning 6. She wants you to come to her party. It's just going to be family and a few friends from school, nothing fancy. Pizza, cake, maybe some games in the backyard. Would you come? Really? She wants me there? She's been asking about it all week. She even made you an invitation. Jonathan pulled a folded piece of construction paper from his desk drawer and handed it to Tasha. The invitation was covered in crayon drawings and stickers. Bethany's 6th birthday party. Please come, Tasha, in wobbly letters. At the bottom, Bethany had drawn a picture of the two of them holding hands. Tasha felt tears prick her eyes. Of course I'll come. Thank you. Means a lot to her. To both of us. Jonathan stood up. Have a good weekend, Tasha. You've earned it. Tasha walked home that evening even though it was a long walk. She needed time to think. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and the city was alive with Friday evening energy. People laughed outside restaurants, couples walked hand in hand, and street musicians played on corners. A week ago, Tasha had been invisible. Just another struggling person in a city full of them, moving through life without anyone really seeing her. Now she had a little girl who drew pictures for her. A man who looked at her with respect and gratitude. A job that challenged her and paid enough that she didn't have to check her bank account before buying groceries. She'd caught a knife with her bare hand and somehow, impossibly, that moment had caught her a life worth living. Her hand throbbed as she walked, but Tasha found herself smiling. The scar would fade eventually, but even if it didn't, she thought she might be okay with that. Some scars were worth having. Some wounds led to healing you didn't know you needed. Saturday morning, Tasha slept in for the first time in years. No alarm, no rush to get to her food cart spot before someone else claimed it, no anxiety about whether she'd make enough money that day. She woke up naturally around 9, sunlight streaming through her bedroom window, and lay in bed just enjoying the quiet. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jonathan. Detective Okafor wants to talk to you about the case. Nothing to worry about, just follow up. Are you free this afternoon? Tasha's stomach tightened. She'd been trying not to think about the man who'd attacked Bethany, but of course there would be an investigation. She texted back that she was free. Detective Rita Okafor arrived at Tasha's apartment at 2. She was a tall Nigerian woman in her late 40s, with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. She wore a maroon blazer and carried a leather portfolio. "Ms. Williams. Thank you for seeing me." She settled into the armchair Tasha offered. "I know you gave your statement at the hospital, but I have a few follow-up questions." "Okay." Tasha sat on the couch, suddenly nervous. "First, how's your hand healing?" "Better. Still sore, but the doctor says I should regain full function with physical therapy." "Good. That's good." Detective Okafor opened her portfolio and pulled out several photographs. "I want to show you some pictures and see if you recognize anyone." The photos were of different men, all around the same age as the attacker. Tasha studied them carefully, her heart pounding. The third photo was him. She'd know that face anywhere, even without the sunglasses. "That one," she said, pointing. "That's the man from the park." "You're certain?" "Completely." Detective Okafor nodded, making a note. "His name is Vincent Curry. He has a record, mostly petty theft and assault. This is his first attempted murder charge. Do you know why he did it? Why he tried to hurt Bethany?" The detective was quiet for a moment. "That's where things get complicated. Curry isn't talking much, but he did admit he was hired to do the job. Someone paid him to go after Mr. Reynolds' daughter." The words hung in the air like smoke. Tasha felt cold suddenly. Someone wanted a 5-year-old girl dead? Or kidnapped? "We're not entirely sure. Curry's story keeps changing." Detective Okafor leaned forward. "Ms. Williams, I need you to understand something. This wasn't a random attack. Bethany Reynolds was specifically targeted. Which means whoever hired Curry might try again." "Does Jonathan know?" "I just came from his house. He knows. Security has been increased around both Bethany and Mr. Reynolds." The detective paused. "I'm telling you this because you work for him now. You'll be around his daughter regularly. You need to be aware of the potential danger." Tasha thought about the little girl who'd hugged her tight, who'd drawn her pictures, who'd called her brave. The thought of someone wanting to hurt her made Tasha's blood run cold. "Do you have any idea who hired him?" she asked. "We're investigating several leads. Mr. Reynolds has business competitors, certainly. He's also been involved in some patent disputes that got ugly. And then there's the fact that his company is worth several $billion, which makes him a target for all sorts of people with all sorts of motivations." Detective Okafor gathered her photos and stood up. "I wanted to give you this information directly because you're part of this now, whether you intended to be or not. If you see anything suspicious, anyone watching the office or following you or Mr. Reynolds, call me immediately." She handed Tasha a business card. After the detective left, Tasha sat on her couch for a long time, staring at the card. She'd thought saving Bethany was a one-time thing, a moment of courage that was over. But it wasn't over. Someone out there wanted to hurt that little girl and they might try again. Tasha picked up her phone and called Jonathan. He answered on the second ring. "Detective Okafor just left," she said without preamble. "She told me about Vincent Curry being hired. I was going to call you. I didn't want you to worry." Jonathan sounded exhausted. "I'm not worried. I'm angry." And she was. Fury burned in her chest at the thought of someone targeting a child. "What can I do to help?" "You've already done more than enough, Tasha. I don't expect you to." "I'm not asking what you expect. I'm asking what I can do." Her voice was firm. "That little girl hugged me yesterday and invited me to her birthday party. I'm not going to sit back and let someone hurt her if there's anything I can do to prevent it." Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. "The security company is installing cameras around my house. I've hired 2 bodyguards to rotate shifts watching Bethany. Claire's going to stay with us for a while. But honestly, Tasha, the best thing you can do is be careful yourself. Whoever is behind this knows you're the one who stopped the first attempt. That might make you a target too." Tasha hadn't thought of that. "I can handle it." "I know you can. But promise me you'll be careful. Lock your doors. Pay attention to your surroundings. Call me if anything feels off." "I promise." That evening, Tasha couldn't stop thinking about the investigation. She found the video of the attack on her phone and watched it again, studying every frame. Something about it bothered her, but she couldn't figure out what. She called her friend Lisa, one of the few people from her old life she'd stayed in touch with. Lisa worked 2 jobs and was taking night classes, always exhausted but always positive. "Girl, I saw that video," Lisa said when she answered. "You're crazy. Brave but crazy. How's the hand?" "Healing. Listen, can I ask you something? About that day in the park." "Sure. Did it seem planned to you? Like, the guy knew exactly where to go and when to be there?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. "Yeah, actually. Now that you mention it. He wasn't looking around like he was confused about where the kid was. He went straight for her. That's what I thought. Tasha's mind was racing. Which means he'd been watching. Maybe for a while. That's creepy as hell. Have you told the cops? Not yet. But I will. After hanging up with Lisa, Tasha called Detective Okafor and left a voicemail with her observation. It probably didn't matter, probably wouldn't change anything, but it felt important to share. The week before Bethany's birthday party passed in a blur of work and worry. Tasha threw herself into learning her job, grateful for the distraction. Jessica continued her training, teaching her about expense reports and travel arrangements and the dozen other small tasks that kept Jonathan's life running smoothly. You're picking this up faster than I expected, Jessica said on Thursday. By the time I retire next month, you'll be ready to take over completely. I'm going to miss you, Tasha admitted. Over the past 2 weeks, Jessica had become more than just a trainer. She was a friend, someone who listened without judgment and offered advice when asked. I'll miss you too. But I'm ready to retire. I want to travel, spend time with my grandkids, maybe learn to paint. I've been working for 40 years. It's time for something new. Jessica smiled. And I'm leaving Jonathan in good hands. You care about him and Bethany. That matters more than any amount of training. Bethany visited the office twice that week, always bouncing with excitement about her upcoming party. You're still coming, right? She asked Tasha every time. You promised. I promised, Tasha confirmed. I wouldn't miss it. On Friday evening, Jonathan stopped by Tasha's desk as she was packing up. Can we talk for a minute? In my office. Tasha followed him in, her stomach tight with worry. His expression was serious. Detective Okafor called, he said once the door was closed. Your observation about the attack being planned was helpful. They pulled security footage from businesses around the park. Vincent Curry was there 3 times in the week before the attack, always at the same time of day, always watching the playground. So he was stalking Bethany. Yes. Which means whoever hired him gave him detailed information about our routines. Where Bethany would be when I'd be distracted on a phone call, where the security guards would be standing. Jonathan ran a hand through his hair. That level of detail means it's someone who knows us. Not a random enemy or business competitor. Someone with access to our daily lives. Tasha felt cold. Someone close to you. Detective Okafor is investigating my employees, my business partners, even my friends. Jonathan's voice was bitter. She says the list of people who'd have that information is actually fairly small. Which should make this easier to solve, but instead it just makes me paranoid about everyone around me. Not everyone, Tasha said quietly. You can trust me. Jonathan met her eyes. I know. You're one of the few people I'm absolutely certain about. You proved where you stand when you caught that knife. They stood in silence for a moment. Outside the window, the city lights were starting to twinkle as evening fell. Bethany's party is tomorrow, Jonathan said finally. It's still happening. I'm not going to let whoever is behind this steal my daughter's joy. But there will be extra security. Plainclothes officers mixed in with the guests. I hope that doesn't make you uncomfortable. I'm glad they'll be there. Bethany deserves to have a normal birthday party. Thank you for understanding. And thank you for caring about her. Jonathan's voice was rough. I know you signed up to be an assistant, not a bodyguard or a friend. But you've become important to both of us. Tasha felt her throat get tight. You've both become important to me too. What would you do if you discovered someone close to you had betrayed your trust in the worst possible way? Would you see it coming or would the truth blindside you? Share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed because this story is about to take a turn that will change everything for Tasha, Jonathan, and little Bethany. Bethany's birthday party was everything a 6-year-old could want. The backyard of Jonathan's house was decorated with bright pink and purple balloons, streamers hanging from the trees, and a bouncy castle that dominated the lawn. A table was loaded with pizza, fruit, and a massive cake shaped like a unicorn. Tasha arrived early carrying a wrapped present. She'd spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing it, finally settling on a set of art supplies after remembering how much Bethany loved to draw. You came. Bethany shrieked, running across the lawn. She wore a sparkly purple dress and a birthday crown that sat slightly crooked on her curls. Look at my castle. And my cake. Isn't it pretty? The prettiest cake I've ever seen, Tasha agreed, letting Bethany drag her toward the festivities. Jonathan stood by the grill, flipping burgers and hot dogs. He wore jeans and a green polo shirt, looking more relaxed than Tasha had seen him at the office. But she noticed the tension in his shoulders and the way his eyes kept scanning the yard. She spotted the security too once she knew to look for it. A woman in a blue sundress who stood too straight and kept one hand near her purse. A man in khakis and a button-down who never quite relaxed into conversation. They were good, blending in with the parents and relatives, but Tasha had spent enough time watching people to recognize those who were watching back. Claire, Jonathan's sister, greeted Tasha with a warm hug. "I'm so glad you could make it. Bethany's been talking about you all week. You'd think you were the birthday girl." The party was loud and chaotic in the best way. Children ran around screaming with joy, playing games and eating too much sugar. Parents chatted in clusters, drinking lemonade and watching their kids. Bethany opened presents with the appropriate level of 6-year-old enthusiasm, squealing over each gift. When she got to Tasha's present, she ripped off the wrapping paper and gasped. "Art supplies. Look, Daddy, so many colors." She threw her arms around Tasha. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're very welcome, birthday girl." After the cake was cut and the singing was done, the party started to wind down. Parents collected their exhausted children, thanking Jonathan and waving goodbye. The security people lingered, though, and Tasha noticed Jonathan having a quiet conversation with the woman in the blue sundress. "Everything okay?" Tasha asked when he came back over. "Fine. Just checking in." But his expression said otherwise. By 6 o'clock, only family and Tasha remained. Claire was helping Bethany sort through her presents, and Jonathan asked Tasha to come inside for a minute. His house was beautiful, decorated in comfortable modern style with family photos everywhere. Tasha could see Lily in some of them, a pretty woman with dark hair and a bright smile, always laughing in the pictures. Jonathan led her to his home office, a room lined with bookshelves and dominated by a large desk. He closed the door behind them and leaned against it, suddenly looking exhausted. "Someone called the house this morning," he said without preamble. "On the landline, which almost no one has the number for. They didn't identify themselves. They just said, 'Pretty party.' Shame if something ruined it." Tasha felt ice in her stomach. "Did you tell the police?" Detective Okafor was here within 20 minutes. They traced the call to a burner phone. Dead end. Jonathan moved to the window, looking out at the backyard where Bethany was now chasing fireflies with Claire. "Whoever is doing this is bold. They're not even trying to hide anymore." What did the detective say? That we need to be more careful. That they're close to identifying who hired Vincent Curry, but they need more time. Jonathan's hands were clenched into fists. "I don't know how much more time I can give them. Living like this, constantly afraid, never knowing if today is the day someone tries again." He broke off, his voice cracking. Tasha moved closer without thinking, placing her good hand on his arm. "You're not alone in this," she said firmly. "I'm here. Claire's here. The police are working on it. And whoever is behind this, they made one big mistake. They underestimated how many people care about Bethany and will fight to protect her." Jonathan looked down at her hand on his arm, then met her eyes. "Why are you doing this? You could have taken the money I offered, said thank you and moved on with your life. You don't owe us anything more." "I don't do it because I owe you. I do it because I care." The words came out more intense than Tasha intended, but they were true. "Bethany is the sweetest kid I've ever met. And you are a good man trying to protect your daughter while running a company that helps people. I'm not walking away from that just because it's hard or scary." They stood close in the quiet office, the evening light casting shadows across the room. Tasha became suddenly aware of how near she was standing, how she could see the flecks of gold in Jonathan's green eyes. He lifted his hand slowly and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're remarkable, Tasha Williams." Before either of them could do or say anything else, the office door burst open. Claire stood there, her face pale. "Jonathan. Someone's at the front gate." The security system caught them on camera. They left something. They all rushed to the front door, where one of the plainclothes officers was examining a manila envelope that had been taped to the gate. He was wearing gloves, treating it like evidence. "Don't touch it," the officer said. "I've already called it in. Detective Okafor is on her way." Through the clear plastic of the evidence bag he'd placed it in, Tasha could see the envelope. On the front, written in block letters, were 2 words, "Last warning." Bethany appeared at the top of the stairs, holding her new stuffed animal. "Daddy? What's happening? Why does everyone look worried?" Jonathan immediately put on a smile and went to her. "Nothing, baby. Just some grown-up stuff. How about we go finish opening those presents?" After Bethany was distracted again, Jonathan, Claire, Tasha, and the officers gathered in the kitchen. Detective Okafor arrived 15 minutes later, her expression grim. "The envelope contains photos," she said after examining it carefully. "Of Bethany. At school, at the park, here at home. Taken over the past few weeks. They've been watching her this whole time, Claire whispered, horrified. It appears so. Detective Okafor's voice was controlled but angry. This is escalating. Mr. Reynolds, I'm recommending you and your daughter relocate to a safe house until we identify the suspect. No. Jonathan's voice was flat. Bethany just turned 6. She has school, friends, a life. I'm not going to lock her away because some coward is threatening us. Jonathan, Claire started, but he cut her off. I'll increase security. I'll hire more bodyguards. I'll do whatever it takes. But I'm not going to let fear control how we live. Detective Okafor nodded slowly. I understand. Then here's what we're going to do. I want at least 2 officers with Bethany at all times. One follows her to school, stays during the day and brings her home. Another stays at the house. Mr. Reynolds, you'll have protection as well. What about Tasha? Jonathan looked at her. She's been part of this from the beginning. If they know about Bethany's routines, they probably know Tasha works for me now. I can take care of myself, Tasha protested. I'm assigning an officer to check on you as well, Detective Okafor said. Just as a precaution. This person has shown they're willing to hurt a child. We can't take any chances. After the detective left and the new security protocols were established, Tasha prepared to leave. It was nearly 9 and Bethany was finally in bed, exhausted from her party and the excitement. Jonathan walked Tasha to her car, one of the officers trailing at a discreet distance. I'm sorry your first few weeks working for me have been like this, Jonathan said. This isn't what you signed up for. Stop apologizing. I'm exactly where I want to be. Tasha looked up at him in the darkness. We're going to figure this out. Detective Okafor will find who's behind it. And if she doesn't? If this just goes on, then we adapt. We stay vigilant. We protect Bethany together. She touched his arm again. You're not doing this alone, Jonathan. He pulled her into a hug, sudden and tight. Tasha stiffened in surprise, then relaxed into it, wrapping her arms around him. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the darkness of his driveway while fireflies blinked in the trees and an officer pretended not to watch. Thank you, Jonathan whispered into her hair. For everything. For being brave. For caring. For staying. Always, Tasha said and meant it. Driving home, Tasha couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to come to a head. Someone was watching them, threatening them and getting bolder. The envelope at the gate wasn't just a warning. It was a promise. Whoever was behind this wasn't going to stop. Which meant Tasha, Jonathan, and the police needed to stop them first. Her phone rang as she pulled into her apartment parking lot. An unknown number. Tasha's heart started pounding as she answered. Hello. Silence on the other end. But not empty silence. She could hear someone breathing. Who is this? Tasha demanded. A voice, distorted and electronic, spoke. You should have minded your own business, Tasha Williams. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. The line went dead. Tasha sat in her car, hands shaking, staring at her phone. Then she called Detective Okafor and told her everything. The game had changed. This wasn't just about protecting Bethany anymore. Now Tasha was a target too. And somehow, knowing that only made her more determined to see this through. The next morning, Detective Okafor arrived at Tasha's apartment at 7. She brought another officer with her, a young man named Officer Martinez who immediately checked all the windows and doors. Tell me about the call again, Detective Okafor said, settling at Tasha's kitchen table with a notepad. Tasha repeated everything. The unknown number, the distorted voice, the exact words. Her hands shook slightly as she spoke, adrenaline still coursing through her system from the night before. She'd barely slept, jumping at every small sound in her apartment. The number was from another burner phone, Detective Okafor said. But they made a mistake calling you. It shows they're rattled. They're trying to scare you into backing off. It's working, Tasha admitted. I'm scared. Good. Fear makes you careful. But don't let it make you helpless. The detective leaned forward. Here's what I didn't tell Mr. Reynolds last night. We broke Vincent Curry yesterday. Tasha's eyes widened. What? He finally agreed to talk in exchange for a reduced sentence. He told us who hired him. Detective Okafor pulled out a photograph and slid it across the table. Tasha looked at the photo. It showed a man in his 50s, balding, with cold eyes and an expensive suit. Who is he? Gregory Walsh. He's Jonathan Reynolds' business partner. Or was until about 6 months ago when Jonathan started buyout proceedings to remove him from the company. Jonathan never mentioned him. Probably because he was trying not to let business problems bleed into his personal life. But Walsh has been fighting the buyout. He stands to lose millions if Jonathan succeeds in pushing him out. He also loses all his shares in the company, which are worth considerably more. Tasha's mind was racing. So he thought if he could hurt Jonathan by taking Bethany, Jonathan would give up the buyout? Exactly. First, Walsh hired Curry to kidnap Bethany for ransom. When that seemed too risky because kidnapping is federal and brings in the FBI, Walsh changed the plan. He told Curry to kill the child instead. The words made Tasha feel sick. He wanted to murder a little girl to protect his business interests? People have done worse for less money. Walsh is looking at a complete financial collapse if the buyout goes through. His other investments have failed. His marriage is falling apart. Reynolds Technology is all he has left. Detective Okafor's voice was cold. He figured a grieving, devastated Jonathan would either give up the buyout or mess it up somehow. Either way, Walsh keeps his position and his money. That's evil. Yes, it is. But now we have proof. Curry gave us text messages, payment records, even a recorded phone call where Walsh discussed the plan. We're moving to arrest Walsh this morning. Relief flooded through Tasha so intensely she felt dizzy. It's over? Almost. We need to find Walsh first. He didn't show up to his office yesterday, and his wife says he hasn't been home. But we have officers at his known locations, and we've frozen his accounts so he can't run far. Detective Okafor stood up. I'm going to leave Officer Martinez here for today, just until we have Walsh in custody. Stay inside, don't answer the door for anyone, and call me if anything seems off. After the detective left, Tasha called Jonathan. He answered on the first ring, his voice tight with tension. Detective Okafor just left, Tasha said. Did she call you? Yes. Gregory Walsh. I can't believe it. Jonathan sounded stunned. I've known him for 8 years. We built this company together. How did I not see this? Because you're not the kind of person who thinks like that. You'd never hurt someone's child for money, so you didn't imagine anyone else would either. I should have been more careful. I should have protected Bethany better. You did protect her. You had security, you were vigilant, and you trusted me to help. Walsh didn't succeed, Jonathan. Bethany is safe. Because of you. Always because of you. His voice was rough. Are you okay? Detective Okafor told me about the phone call. I'm fine. Scared but fine. There's an officer here with me. I'll stay home today. Good. I'm keeping Bethany home from school too, just until Walsh is arrested. This should be over soon. But it wasn't over yet. That afternoon, Tasha was reading on her couch while Officer Martinez sat at her kitchen table working on his laptop. Her phone rang. Jonathan. Tasha, lock your doors. Right now. She jumped up, her heart hammering. What's wrong? Walsh was spotted 3 blocks from your apartment. The police are converging, but he's on foot and moving fast. He might be heading toward you. Officer Martinez was already moving, checking the door locks and pulling his weapon. He spoke into his radio, calling for backup. Why would he come here? Tasha asked, trying to keep her voice steady. You're the one who stopped his plan. You're the witness who can testify about the attack. Without you, the case against him gets weaker. Jonathan's voice was strained. Stay away from the windows. The police will be there any second. Tasha moved to the interior hallway, pressing her back against the wall. Officer Martinez positioned himself by the door, his weapon drawn, speaking quietly into his radio. Minutes felt like hours. Tasha could hear her own heartbeat, loud in her ears. Then she heard footsteps in the hallway outside her apartment. Heavy, running footsteps. The doorknob rattled. Police. Step away from the door. Officer Martinez shouted. The footsteps stopped. Tasha heard more running, multiple people this time. Shouting. A scuffle in the hallway. Then Detective Okafor's voice. Gregory Walsh, you're under arrest. Officer Martinez looked through the peephole, then holstered his weapon and opened the door. In the hallway, 3 officers were handcuffing a sweating, disheveled man. Gregory Walsh looked nothing like his professional photo. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his face was red and twisted with rage, and his eyes were wild. This is her fault. Walsh screamed, looking directly at Tasha. That interfering nobody ruined everything. If she'd just minded her own business, none of this would have happened. That's enough, Detective Okafor said firmly, reading Walsh's rights. As they led him away, still shouting, the detective turned to Tasha. Are you okay? Tasha nodded, not trusting her voice. Her whole body was shaking with adrenaline. He's going to prison for a very long time. Attempted murder of a child, conspiracy, stalking, making terroristic threats. We have him on everything. Detective Okafor put a reassuring hand on Tasha's shoulder. It's over now. You and Bethany are safe. After the police left, taking Walsh with them, Tasha sat on her couch and cried. Not from fear, though she was still scared. Not from relief, though she was relieved. She cried from the overwhelming weight of everything that had happened in the past 3 weeks. From catching the knife to saving Bethany to becoming part of Jonathan's life to being threatened and hunted. Her phone rang again. Jonathan. They got him, Tasha said before he could speak. He came to my door, but they got him. I'm coming over. I need to see that you're okay. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. I'll be there in 20 minutes. True to his word, Jonathan arrived 20 minutes later, slightly out of breath like he'd been hurrying. He took one look at Tasha's tear-stained face and pulled her into a hug. I'm so sorry, he said into her hair. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. I'm not. Tasha pulled back to look at him. If I hadn't been there that day, Bethany would be dead. If I hadn't stayed involved, Walsh might have tried again and succeeded. I'm not sorry for any of it. You're the bravest person I know. I'm not brave. I'm terrified most of the time. I just don't let it stop me. Jonathan smiled slightly. That's literally the definition of courage. They sat on her couch, close together, processing everything. Jonathan told her that Walsh had been desperate. The buyout was scheduled to be finalized next week, and Walsh had been running out of time and options. He'd thought if he could eliminate the main witness against him, the case would fall apart. He was wrong, Jonathan said. Even without your testimony, we have Curry's statement and all the evidence. Walsh is going away for decades. What about the buyout? It'll go through now without opposition. Walsh's lawyer is already negotiating a settlement. He'll lose everything, which is what he deserves. Jonathan looked at her. And Reynolds' technology will be stronger without him. We can focus on the work that matters instead of dealing with his schemes. That's good. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jonathan said quietly, I need to tell you something. Tasha's stomach tightened. Okay. These past few weeks, getting to know you, seeing how you are with Bethany, watching you face all of this with such strength. He paused, seeming to gather his courage. I care about you, Tasha. A lot. More than just as an employee or a friend. Tasha's heart started pounding for an entirely different reason. Jonathan. I know the timing is terrible. We've just been through a crisis, emotions are high, and you work for me, which makes everything complicated. But I needed to say it. You deserve to know how I feel. Tasha looked at this man who'd changed her life. Who'd seen her at her lowest and offered help without conditions. Who trusted her with his daughter and his business. Who looked at her like she mattered. I care about you too, she said softly. I have for a while now. I just didn't think. She trailed off. Didn't think what? That someone like you could see someone like me that way. Jonathan took her hand, carefully avoiding the healing scar on her palm. Someone like you is exactly who I see. Someone brave and kind and genuine. Someone who puts others first. Someone my daughter adores and who I've come to depend on. It is complicated, Tasha said. The job, the difference in our lives, everything. I know. We don't have to figure it all out right now. We've both been through enough today. I just wanted you to know. He squeezed her hand gently. Whatever happens between us, you'll always have a place in our lives. You and Bethany have bonded, and I won't take that away from her or you, regardless of anything else. Thank you for saying that. Jonathan stayed for another hour, just sitting with her, making sure she was truly okay. Before he left, he hugged her again, holding on a little longer than necessary. Get some rest, he said. Take tomorrow off if you need it. Jessica and I can handle things. I'll be there. I want things to feel normal again. Normal sounds good. After he left, Tasha lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Gregory Walsh was in custody. The threat to Bethany was over. Her life could finally settle into the new normal she'd been building. And maybe, just maybe, that new normal could include something she'd never let herself hope for. A real relationship with a good man who saw her for who she was and valued it. A chance at not just a job and an apartment but a family. She touched the scar on her palm, feeling the raised tissue. This mark would be with her forever, a reminder of the day everything changed. The day she stopped being invisible and became someone who mattered. Tasha closed her eyes and let herself imagine it. A future where she belonged. Where she was loved. Where catching a knife had caught her something far more precious. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, for the first time in weeks feeling truly safe. 2 months later, Tasha sat in a courtroom wearing a blue dress that Jessica had helped her pick out. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she could feel the scar on her palm. It had healed well, though the physical therapist said she'd always have some stiffness in her grip. Gregory Walsh sat at the defendant's table with his lawyers, looking smaller somehow than he had that day in her hallway. He wore an orange jumpsuit now instead of expensive suits. His empire had crumbled. His wife had filed for divorce. His assets were frozen. And soon he'd be going to prison. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Andrea Chin, stood up. The state calls Tasha Williams to the stand. Tasha's legs felt shaky as she walked to the witness box. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. The courtroom was packed with reporters, observers, and Walsh's victims. Jonathan sat in the front row with Claire. Bethany was at school, too young to be here for this. Ms. Williams, Andrea Chin began, can you tell the court what you witnessed on the afternoon of April 15th? Tasha took a deep breath and began. She described her food cart in the park, the beautiful spring day, the little girl in the yellow dress. She described seeing Gregory Walsh's hired man grab Bethany. Seeing the knife. Running without thinking. And then what happened? Andrea prompted. I caught the blade with my hand. Tasha held up her scarred palm for the jury to see. It cut deep, but I held on. I couldn't let him hurt her. Why did you do that, Ms. Williams? You didn't know this child. Because she was a child. Because someone needed help and I could help. Because it was the right thing to do. The prosecutor walked her through the rest. Jonathan tackling the attacker, the security guards arriving, the ambulance. Then she moved to the aftermath. The phone call with the distorted voice. Walsh showing up at her apartment. The threats and the fear. Walsh's defense attorney, a tired-looking man named Robert Green, tried to poke holes in her testimony during cross-examination. Ms. Williams, isn't it true that you were struggling financially before this incident? Yes. And isn't it true that Mr. Reynolds offered you substantial financial assistance after you saved his daughter? He offered to help because I was injured and couldn't work. Yes. So you had a financial motive to testify in a way that would please Mr. Reynolds. Andrea Chin shot to her feet. Objection. Ms. Williams is testifying to what she witnessed firsthand. Her financial situation has no bearing on the facts. Sustained, the judge said. Mr. Green, stick to relevant questions. The defense attorney tried a few more times to discredit Tasha, suggesting she'd been paid off or was exaggerating her testimony. But Tasha remained calm, answering each question honestly. She had nothing to hide. She'd seen what she'd seen. She'd done what she'd done. Vincent Curry testified next, describing in detail how Walsh had hired him. He produced text messages, bank records showing payments, even a recorded phone conversation where Walsh had explicitly ordered him to eliminate the girl if kidnapping is too risky. The recording played in the quiet courtroom. Walsh's voice clear and cold, I don't care how you do it. Just make sure Reynolds suffers. Take away what he loves most. Then he'll give me what I want. Several jurors looked disgusted. One woman wiped tears from her eyes. Over 3 days the prosecution built an overwhelming case. Walsh had means, motive, and opportunity. He'd planned the attack carefully, studying Bethany's routines, hiring Curry, providing detailed information. When the first attempt failed, he doubled down with threats and stalking. The defense tried to paint Walsh as a desperate man driven to poor decisions by stress. They argued he'd never actually intended for Bethany to be hurt, that it was all just threats meant to scare Jonathan into backing off the buyout. But the jury didn't buy it. After only 4 hours of deliberation, they returned a verdict: guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, stalking, making terroristic threats, witness intimidation. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Walsh was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, his face blank. Jonathan caught up with Tasha in the hallway outside. You were amazing in there. So calm and clear. I just told the truth. Tasha felt drained. Testifying had been harder than she'd expected, reliving that day in the park and all the fear that followed. Come on. Let me buy you lunch. Or dinner. Whatever meal this counts as. Jonathan looked at his watch. It's 4 o'clock. We've been here all day. They went to a quiet restaurant near the courthouse, sitting in a corner booth away from other diners. Tasha ordered soup because her stomach was too unsettled for anything heavier. How's Bethany doing? She asked. Does she understand what's been happening? She knows the bad man who tried to hurt her is going to jail. She doesn't understand all the details, which is probably for the best. She's mostly just excited that she can go to the park again without a bodyguard. Jonathan smiled. She asked me yesterday if you could come to the park with us this weekend. She wants to show you her new skill on the swings. I'd love to. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Over the past 2 months, Tasha and Jonathan had found a rhythm. She'd become invaluable at work, taking over all of Jessica's duties as the older woman transitioned into retirement. Tasha managed Jonathan's calendar, coordinated with department heads, and even sat in on some meetings to take notes. But more than that, she'd become part of their family. She had dinner at Jonathan's house twice a week. She helped Bethany with art projects and read her bedtime stories. She went to Bethany's school events and soccer games. Jonathan had been careful about his feelings, not pushing or making things awkward. But Tasha felt the connection between them growing stronger. The way he looked at her. The way he found excuses to spend time with her. The way they could communicate with just a glance after months of working together. Tasha, Jonathan said, setting down his fork, the trial's over. Walsh is going to prison. Our lives can finally get back to normal. That's good. Except I don't want normal. Not if normal means pretending I don't have feelings for you. Not if normal means keeping this professional distance when all I want is to be close to you. Tasha's heart started racing. Jonathan. I know all the reasons this is complicated. I'm your boss. I have a daughter. We come from different worlds. But none of that matters to me. What matters is that you're the first person I think about in the morning and the last person I think about before I sleep. What matters is that Bethany lights up when you walk in the room. What matters is that you make both of our lives better just by being in them. You make my life better too, Tasha said quietly. You and Bethany both. I never thought I could have this. A real job, a real home, people who care about me. And then more than that. Someone who sees me, really sees me and likes what he sees. I more than like what I see. I love what I see. Jonathan reached across the table and took her hand. I love you, Tasha. I've been falling in love with you since the day you caught that knife. Maybe even in that exact moment, watching you risk everything for my daughter without hesitation. Tears pricked Tasha's eyes. I love you too. I've been scared to say it, scared to hope for this, but I do. I love you and I love Bethany. Then let's stop being scared. Let's see where this goes. We'll take it slow, make sure Bethany adjusts, figure out the work situation. But let's do this together. Really together. Yes, Tasha said, smiling through her tears. Yes, I want that. Jonathan got up and slid into her side of the booth, pulling her into his arms. They sat like that for a long moment, holding each other, feeling the rightness of it. I should probably tell you, Jonathan said with a laugh, that Bethany has been asking when you're going to be her new mommy. Apparently, she told her whole kindergarten class that her daddy loves you. Oh no, Tasha laughed. What did you say? I told her that grown-ups need time to figure things out, but that I do love you very much and I hope someday soon you'll be part of our family officially. Someday soon sounds perfect. 2 weeks later, Gregory Walsh was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Vincent Curry received 8 years with the possibility of parole for his cooperation. The case closed finally and completely. That weekend, Tasha moved some of her things into Jonathan's house. Not all of them, not yet. But enough. A drawer in his dresser. Space in the bathroom cabinet. Her favorite coffee mug in his kitchen. Bethany helped her unpack, chattering excitedly about how Tasha could sleep in the guest room. But maybe someday you can sleep in Daddy's room? That's what mommies and daddies do. Someday, Tasha agreed, ruffling the little girl's hair. That night, after Bethany was asleep, Tasha and Jonathan sat on his back porch watching fireflies blink in the darkness. His arm was around her shoulders and she leaned into his warmth. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For seeing me. For not letting me refuse your help. For giving me a chance at this life. You gave yourself this life. You earned it the moment you ran toward danger instead of away from it. Jonathan kissed the top of her head. I'm just grateful you let me be part of it. Tasha looked at her scarred palm in the dim light from the house. The mark would fade more over time, but it would never completely disappear. She was glad. It was a reminder of the moment everything changed. The moment she stopped surviving and started living. She'd caught a knife with her bare hand and bled for it. But that blood had watered something new. Something beautiful. Something that looked a lot like love and family and home. What are you thinking? Jonathan asked. That some scars are worth having. He took her scarred hand and kissed the palm gently. The best ones are. They sat in the peaceful night, two people who'd found each other in the chaos, building something real from broken pieces. Behind them in the house, a little girl slept safe and sound. Ahead of them stretched a future full of possibility. And in that moment, Everything felt exactly right. 6 months after the trial, life had settled into a wonderful rhythm. Tasha woke up most mornings in Jonathan's house, in the guest room that had slowly become hers. She'd make coffee while Jonathan got Bethany ready for school, then they'd all have breakfast together before starting their day. Work was going well. Tasha had fully taken over as Jonathan's executive assistant, and she was good at it. She developed her own systems, built relationships with the staff, and learned to anticipate problems before they became crises. People respected her not because she'd saved the CEO's daughter, but because she was competent and kind. She was also taking classes again. 2 nights a week, she attended college courses online, working toward finishing her degree in business administration. Jonathan had offered to pay for it, but Tasha had insisted on using the education benefits from her job like any other employee. She needed to know she'd earned this on her own merit. "You're so stubborn," Jonathan had said with a smile when she'd refused his offer. "You say stubborn, I say independent. I say I love you either way." Her relationship with Jonathan had deepened naturally over the months. They'd gone on proper dates, dinners and movies and walks through the park where they'd met. They'd talked for hours about everything and nothing. They'd learned each other's habits and preferences, the comfortable intimacy of daily life. But they'd been careful with Bethany, letting her adjust to the changes slowly. Tasha was her friend first, then gradually more. They didn't discuss labels or make big announcements. They just let it happen organically. Bethany seemed thrilled with the arrangement. She had Tasha at breakfast, sometimes saw her at the office after school, and got to spend evenings with her when Tasha stayed for dinner. She'd started calling Tasha by her first name instead of Miss Williams, and she'd drawn a new picture for her wall, the 3 of them holding hands with a house and a sun and hearts floating everywhere. On a Saturday morning in October, Tasha woke early to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. She could hear Jonathan already up, probably making his terrible coffee. She smiled and got out of bed, pulling on jeans and a red sweater. In the kitchen, she found him at the stove attempting to make pancakes. 2 were already burned in the pan. "Need help?" she asked, kissing his cheek. "Desperately. I don't know how you make these look so easy." Tasha took over the pancakes while Jonathan set the table. This had become their Saturday morning ritual. Pancakes, usually made by Tasha because Jonathan was hopeless in the kitchen, eaten together before starting their weekend. Bethany stumbled in wearing her unicorn pajamas, her hair a mess of curls. She climbed into Tasha's lap without asking, something she did now like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Morning, sleepyhead," Tasha said, hugging her. "Morning. Are those chocolate chip pancakes? Would I make any other kind?" After breakfast, they all went to Monroe Park. It was the first time Tasha had been back since the attack, and she felt nervous as they pulled into the parking lot. "We don't have to do this," Jonathan said, reading her expression. "No, I want to. I don't want to be afraid of this place. It's where we met. It should be a good memory." The park was full of families enjoying the fall weather. Children played on the swings and slides. Dogs chased frisbees. It looked peaceful and normal, nothing like the scene from her nightmares. Bethany ran ahead to the playground, and Tasha and Jonathan followed at a slower pace. They walked past the spot where Tasha's food cart had been. Someone else had the spot now, selling tacos instead of sausages. "Do you miss it?" Jonathan asked. "The cart? Sometimes. It was mine, you know. I built that business from nothing. But honestly, no. I don't miss the long hours or the uncertainty or never knowing if I'd make rent." She looked up at him. "What you gave me is so much better. Stability. A future. A family." They reached the fountain where it had happened. Tasha stood at the edge, looking at the water sparkling in the sunlight. This was where she'd seen the knife. Where she'd run without thinking. Where everything had changed. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not letting that moment define me. For giving me space to be more than just the woman who caught a knife. For letting me be Tasha, complete and whole, with flaws and dreams and a life that matters." Jonathan pulled her close. "You've always been that person. I just got lucky enough to see it." Bethany ran back over, breathless and excited. "Tasha, come push me on the swings. I can go really high now." Tasha spent the next hour playing with Bethany, pushing her on the swings, helping her across the monkey bars, catching her at the bottom of the slide. Jonathan watched from a bench, smiling at his 2 favorite people. As they were leaving, a woman approached them hesitantly. She was in her 30s with a little boy holding her hand. "Excuse me, are you Tasha Williams?" "Yes," Tasha said cautiously. "I wanted to say thank you. Not just for what you did for this little girl but for what you showed all of us. I saw the video. I saw you run toward danger when everyone else froze. And it made me think about the kind of person I want to be. The kind of example I want to set for my son. She smiled. You inspired a lot of people that day. I hope you know that. The woman walked away before Tasha could respond. She stood there, processing the words, feeling something shift inside her chest. You okay? Jonathan asked. Yeah. I just never thought about it that way. That other people saw what I did and it mattered to them. You're a hero to a lot of people. Not just Bethany and me. That evening, after Bethany was in bed, Tasha and Jonathan sat in his study. She was working on homework for her business class while he reviewed reports for work. This had become their routine, comfortable companionship while they each did their own tasks. Tasha, Jonathan said, closing his laptop. Can we talk about something? Of course. She set aside her textbook, hearing the seriousness in his voice. We've been together for 6 months now. You're here most nights, you have clothes in the closet, you help with Bethany's homework. For all practical purposes, you live here. Is that a problem? Tasha's stomach tightened. No. The opposite. I want to make it official. I want you to move in completely. Give up your apartment, bring all your things here, make this your home. Our home. Tasha felt her heart skip. That's a big step. I know. And if you're not ready, we can wait. But I need you to know that I'm ready. Bethany's ready. We want you here permanently as part of our family. What about work? People already whisper about us sometimes. Let them whisper. We're not doing anything wrong. Our relationship doesn't affect our work, and anyone with eyes can see you're excellent at your job regardless of our personal connection. If it really bothers you, I can find a different role for you in the company. You could transfer to another department, or work for one of the other executives. No, I like working with you. I like being your right hand, knowing I'm helping you succeed. Tasha took a deep breath. Okay. Yes, I'll move in. Completely. Make this my home. Our home. Jonathan's face lit up with pure joy. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, kissing her thoroughly. You've made me so happy. Made us so happy. I'm happy too. Happier than I ever thought possible. They spent the next few weeks sorting through Tasha's apartment, deciding what to keep and what to donate. Most of her furniture went to charity since Jonathan's house was fully furnished. But her personal items, her books and clothes and the photo of her mother, all found new homes in Jonathan's house. Their house, she corrected herself. It was her house now too. Bethany helped enthusiastically, claiming space in her room for Tasha's things. This drawer can be for your clothes when you sleep in here with me sometimes. And this shelf can be for your books so we can read together. That sounds perfect, sweetie. The day Tasha officially moved in, Claire came over with a housewarming gift. A beautiful framed photo of the three of them from a company picnic. They were laughing in the picture, arms around each other, looking like what they were. A family. I'm glad my brother found you, Claire said, hugging Tasha. You're good for him. Good for both of them. You've brought life back into this house. That night, after everything was unpacked and Bethany was asleep, Tasha stood in the master bedroom. She'd been sleeping in the guest room, but Jonathan had asked if she was ready to share his room. To fully share his life. She looked at the photo on his dresser, the one of him and his late wife Lily. It had always been there, and Jonathan had never hidden his past. He'd loved his wife deeply, and losing her had devastated him. Does it bother you? Jonathan asked quietly from the doorway. That picture? No. She was part of your life. She gave you Bethany. I would never ask you to forget her. I'll always love her. But I love you too. Those feelings don't cancel each other out. There's room in my heart for both. I know. And I'm glad you had that love even though you lost it. It made you who you are. The man I fell in love with. Jonathan came to stand beside her. Lily would have liked you. She always wanted me to find someone kind and genuine if anything happened to her. Someone who would be good to Bethany. Someone who would take care of us. That's you, Tasha. I hope I can live up to that. You already do. Every single day. That night, Tasha slept in Jonathan's arms in the master bedroom, feeling like she'd finally come home. Not just to a house or a city but to a person. To a life that fit her like she'd been made for it. Her hand was fully healed now, though physical therapy continued to strengthen her grip. She'd regained almost all the function, losing only a little bit of fine motor control. A small price to pay for the life she'd gained. She thought about that afternoon in the park. How she'd been selling sausages from a cart, struggling to make rent, invisible to most people. How one scream had changed everything. How she'd run without thinking toward a danger she couldn't ignore. If someone had told her then where she'd end up, she never would have believed it. Working at a major company. Living in a beautiful house. Dating a brilliant, kind man who looked at her like she hung the moon. Being a mother figure to the sweetest child she'd ever met. What are you thinking? Jonathan murmured sleepily. That I'd do it again. Catch that knife, risk everything, go through all the fear and pain. I'd do it 1,000 times if it meant ending up here with you. Thank God you only had to do it once. Tasha laughed quietly and nestled closer to him. Outside the night was peaceful. Inside she was home. Finally, completely, wonderfully home. A year and a half after catching the knife, Tasha stood in Monroe Park again. But this time, everything was different. The park had been decorated with white chairs arranged in rows, facing an arch covered in flowers. Soft music played from speakers hidden in the trees. The spring afternoon was perfect, warm but not too hot, with a gentle breeze that made the flowers sway. Tasha wore a simple cream-colored dress that fell to her knees. Nothing fancy or dramatic. This wasn't about the dress or the decorations. It was about the promise she was about to make. Claire was with her, acting as her maid of honor. You ready? She asked with a warm smile. More than ready. They walked out from behind the trees where they'd been waiting. Tasha's eyes immediately found Jonathan standing under the flower-covered arch. He wore a blue suit and was holding Bethany's hand. The little girl wore a matching blue dress and held a basket of flower petals. The guests were small in number. Jonathan's colleagues from work. Detective Okafor, who'd become a friend over the months of the investigation. Jessica, retired but still close to all of them. Lisa, Tasha's friend from her old life. And a handful of others who mattered to them both. As Tasha walked down the aisle between the chairs, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. A food cart in this very park. A little girl's scream. A knife that had cut her hand and opened her life. She reached the arch and Bethany immediately grabbed her hand. You look so pretty, the little girl whispered. So do you, sweetheart. Jonathan's eyes were bright with emotion. He took Tasha's other hand, the one with the scar, and held it gently. The officiant, a woman Jonathan knew from his business council, smiled at them. We're gathered here today in the place where Jonathan and Tasha's story began. Where an act of courage brought two people together and created a family. Before we begin, I believe Bethany has something she wants to say. Bethany stepped forward, clutching a piece of paper. She'd insisted on being part of the ceremony, and they'd agreed to let her speak. Tasha, Bethany read carefully from her paper, you saved my life. You were brave when you didn't have to be. And then you stayed when you could have left. You read me stories and help with my homework and make the best pancakes. You make my daddy smile more. You're my hero and my friend and I love you so much. I'm really happy you're going to be my mommy. Tasha felt tears sliding down her face. She knelt down and hugged Bethany tight. I love you too, sweet girl. So much. The ceremony was short and simple. They'd written their own vows. Jonathan went first. Tasha, the day I met you, you saved my daughter's life. But you did more than that. You saved mine too. I'd been so focused on work and responsibilities that I'd forgotten what it meant to really live. You showed me courage and kindness and hope. You brought joy back into our lives. I promise to love you, support your dreams, protect your heart, and be the partner you deserve for the rest of my life. Tasha wiped her eyes and began her vows. Jonathan, when I caught that knife, I was just trying to save a child. I never imagined I'd find a family. You saw me when I was invisible. You helped me when I would have refused out of pride. You gave me a chance to be more than I thought I could be. I promise to love you and Bethany with everything I have. To be your partner, your friend, and the mother Bethany deserves. For all the days I'm given. They exchanged simple gold rings. The officiant pronounced them married. And when they kissed, Bethany cheered loudly, making everyone laugh. The reception was in Jonathan's backyard, which had been transformed with lights strung through the trees and tables set up with food and cake. It was casual and joyful, exactly what they wanted. Tasha danced with Jonathan, with Bethany, with Claire. She talked to Detective Okafor about her new case, a fraud investigation that had her traveling. She hugged Jessica, who cried and told her she was proud of the woman Tasha had become. Lisa pulled her aside at one point. Look at you, she said, shaking her head in amazement. Remember when we used to split $1 menu dinner because neither of us could afford a full meal? I remember. I'll never forget where I came from, Lisa. I know you won't. That's why you're still you even with all this. You didn't let the money or the man or any of it change who you are at your core. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jonathan found Tasha standing by herself for a moment, watching the party. Mrs. Reynolds, he said, trying out her new name. How does it feel? Strange. Good. Right. She turned to him. I keep thinking about that day in the park. How scared I was. How I didn't know if I could do it. But I did it anyway. That's always been who you are. Someone who does the hard thing because it's right. I'm glad I ran that day. I'm glad I caught the knife. I'm glad I let you help me instead of pushing you away. Every choice led me here, to this moment, to you. To us, Jonathan corrected, nodding toward Bethany, who was dancing with Claire. All three of us. Later that evening, after the guests had left and Bethany had finally fallen asleep from exhaustion, Tasha and Jonathan sat on their back porch. They'd decided to skip a honeymoon for now. Neither of them wanted to leave Bethany, and they'd take a family trip somewhere special over the summer instead. I got something for you, Jonathan said. He pulled out a small wrapped box. I know we already exchanged rings, but I wanted to give you this too. Tasha opened it to find a delicate necklace. The pendant was a small silver knife with a tiny diamond set in the handle. It's beautiful, she breathed. It's a reminder. Not of the violence or the pain, but of the moment everything changed. The moment you became part of our lives. The moment you chose courage over safety. Jonathan helped her put it on. I know you don't think of yourself as brave, but you are. You're the bravest person I know. I was just doing what needed to be done. Exactly. That's what courage is. Tasha touched the pendant, feeling the smooth metal. Do you know what I'm most grateful for? Not the job or the house or even this perfect day. It's that I get to be Bethany's mom. That I get to be part of raising this incredible little person. That I matter to someone the way she matters to me. You matter to both of us. More than you'll ever know. They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies begin their nightly dance in the yard. Inside the house, their daughter slept safe and sound. Around them, a life they'd built together hummed with possibility. Mrs. Reynolds, Jonathan said again, like he was enjoying the sound of it. What do you want to do tomorrow? Breakfast with my family. Maybe go to the park. Come home and do laundry because we're out of clean towels. Make dinner together. Normal things. Perfect things. Normal does sound perfect. 3 months later, Tasha walked across a stage in a blue graduation gown, accepting her college diploma. Jonathan and Bethany cheered from the audience, Bethany holding a sign that said, "That's my mom," with hearts drawn all over it. She'd finished her degree in business administration, maintaining a 4.0 GPA while working full-time and being a wife and mother. It had been hard, juggling everything, but she'd done it. She'd proven to herself that she could achieve anything she set her mind to. After the ceremony, they went out for celebration dinner. Bethany insisted Tasha wear her graduation cap the whole time. I'm so proud of you, Jonathan said, raising his glass in a toast. You're incredible, you know that? I just kept going. One class at a time. One assignment at a time. That's all any of us can do. Keep going. Keep trying. Keep moving forward. Tasha thought about how far she'd moved forward. From a food cart to an executive desk. From a broken locked apartment to a real home. From being alone to being part of a family. From surviving to thriving. At work the next week, there was a surprise waiting for her. Jonathan's senior leadership team had gathered in the conference room with a cake. We wanted to congratulate you on your graduation, said Michael Torres, the VP of Operations. We also wanted to offer you a new position. Director of Operations Support. It's a promotion with your own team and a significant raise. If you're interested. Tasha looked at Jonathan, who smiled. This is separate from our personal relationship. The leadership team made this decision based on your work performance over the past 18 months. You've earned this on your own merit. I don't know what to say. Say yes, suggested Patricia Monroe, the CFO. You're good at what you do, Tasha. You see problems before they become crises. You communicate clearly. You build relationships. Those are leadership skills. We need them on the operations team. Tasha thought about refusing, about worrying it was too much too fast. But then she remembered Jonathan's words from long ago, let yourself have it. This is your life now. You earned it. Yes, she said firmly. I'd be honored to accept the position. The transition into leadership was challenging but rewarding. Tasha discovered she liked managing people, helping them grow and succeed. She brought the same caring approach to leadership that she'd always had in life. She remembered what it felt like to struggle, to need help, to want someone to believe in you. 6 months after her promotion, she hired a young woman named Angela Martinez who was working 2 jobs and attending night school. Angela reminded Tasha of herself, scrappy and determined but needing a chance. "I believe in you," Tasha told her on Angela's first day. "You're going to do great things here." Angela's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Someone gave me a chance when I needed it. Now I'm paying it forward." At home, life was beautifully ordinary. Bethany was thriving in second grade. She'd inherited her father's intelligence and her new mother's kindness. She talked about becoming a doctor someday so she could help people. Or maybe a teacher, she mused one evening while Tasha helped her with homework. Or an artist. Or a scientist. "You can be anything you want," Tasha assured her. "You have time to figure it out." "What did you want to be when you were my age?" Tasha thought back to her childhood before her mother got sick. "I wanted to be a chef. I loved cooking with my mom." "You still love cooking. You make the best food ever." "Thank you, baby. But I ended up doing something different, and that's okay too. Life takes you where you need to go, not always where you planned. Like how you didn't plan to catch a knife, but if you didn't, you wouldn't have met us." Exactly like that. On their first wedding anniversary, Jonathan surprised Tasha by taking her back to Monroe Park. They walked to the spot where her food cart had been, where she'd seen the knife, where everything had changed. "I wanted to come back here with you," Jonathan said. "To remember but also to celebrate. This place represents the worst moment of my life. But also the best. The moment I almost lost everything, and the moment I gained everything. I feel the same way. When I touch this scar," Tasha held up her palm, "I remember the pain. But I also remember the little girl I saved. The family I found. The life I built from that moment." What would you tell that version of yourself if you could go back? The woman working the food cart, struggling to make rent, invisible to most people? Tasha thought about it. I'd tell her to run when she hears that scream. To catch the knife without hesitation. To let the man in the gray suit help her instead of pushing him away. To believe that she deserves good things. She looked up at Jonathan. I'd tell her that everything is about to change and it's going to be scary and overwhelming and wonderful. And that she's strong enough to handle all of it. She was always strong enough. She just didn't know it yet. They stood together in the park where their story began, holding hands, watching children play. A little boy fell off the monkey bars and started to cry. His mother rushed over, scooping him up, kissing his tears away. Tasha smiled. That was her now. The mother who rushed to comfort. The woman who caught the falling child. The person who showed up when it mattered. She'd caught a knife with her bare hand and bled for it. But that blood had watered a garden. A garden full of love and family and belonging. A garden where she could finally plant roots and grow. Ready to go home? Jonathan asked. Tasha thought about their house, where Bethany was waiting with Claire, probably making too much noise and eating too much ice cream. Where homework was scattered on the kitchen table and photos covered the walls. Where she belonged completely and totally. Yes, she said, squeezing his hand. Let's go home. And they walked out of the park together, leaving behind the ghosts of who they used to be, walking toward the life they'd built from courage and kindness and hope. The knife had cut her. But it had also set her free. And in the end, that was everything.